Next, it's very important that we listen to the voice of our youth, and I'm so pleased to invite Cindy, a student from MIT who has been leading a program of cultural transformation for planetary health on campus. She's also been an intern with me on the Constellation project. So welcome, Cindy.
Thanks so much, Susan. It's great to be here today. Yeah, I guess I'll just be providing some brief remarks today about sort of my perspective as a student advocate on campus, as well as sort of in this broader global community of planetary health, addressing questions of sort of deeper transformation in the context of the climate crisis. So I guess among young people, we really noticed this sort of conceptual and intellectual awareness of the climate crisis being at an all-time high. Yeah, I think sometimes there's still this gap in terms of a shift towards tangible and collective climate action. And why is that the case, really? I think part of it is rooted in this question of behavioral and cultural change that we've been trying to address through our work. When we talk about these sorts of very deterministic climate projections, whether that's global warming or biodiversity loss or all these other sorts of visions of our future, I think there's sometimes a sense of inevitability associated with these projections and a resulting sense of hopelessness that comes in sort of the way they frame sort of your upbringing and your future. I think one thing we've been really curious about is sort of, can these kinds of models be coupled with different tools and outlets that not only make us think about the climate crisis, but also sort of allow us to feel and start this process of inner transformation. As a student who's been involved in these climate education movements on campus, I've noticed, among other things, a sort of sense of subconscious aversion to these kinds of big questions. I think it has to do with the fact that, as people have gestured here throughout their various presentations, it's not just that we're observing all these changes in the planet around us, but I think that these changes sort of indicate something to us about the way that our societies have been structured, our livelihoods have been structured, and sort of the fundamental unsustainability and untenability of those kinds of systems moving forward, which can be a really scary thing to grapple with. I'm just thinking of the US context specifically where I'm situated, the recent sorts of ongoing racial reckonings that we've been having, thinking about COVID-19, about the Black Lives Matter movement, about sort of all these questions of social justice that are increasingly becoming a part of the upbringing of a lot of young folks here. And also sort of these very like expansive and multimodal ways of thinking about how these sort of systemic oppressions have structured the social and political systems in which we live in, and how this all sorts of trickles down into issues of planetary health and issues of the climate crisis. So I don't necessarily have answers for how we begin to solve these problems, but I just sort of wanted to offer a few words about dialogue and sort of practices we've been employing to try to give young people the tools to critically process the climate question, the climate crisis, and its sort of connection to these deeper societal questions. So one example, like Susan mentioned, is the Cultural Transformation for Planetary Health series that I've been running here at MIT, along with other partners and along with the Planetary Health Alliance for the past 3 or 4 months now. And we're really framing this as sort of a series of open-ended dialogues and discussions around topics such as water rights, Indigenous knowledge systems, climate writing, really focusing on sort of a co-creative approach to the questions of planetary health and such. And sort of thinking about how engagement with planetary change in the context of cultural values, of community well-being, and of racial justice helps open up some of these spaces to discuss alternative narratives and alternative futures. Even just people reporting that after these events, they feel a bit more hopeful, a bit more connected, and a bit more refreshed in this very chaotic time in the world that we're experiencing. To us, that really feels like the starting point or like an impetus for moving from those kinds of inner and interpersonal connections to this sort of collective transformation. Separately from this work, I've also been involved in the youth committee for an educational learning center in Cambridge called the CADA Center, focusing on dialogue as a tool for peace building and transformation. And I think for me, that's been a really powerful reminder of sort of the outlets that young people are really seeking to discuss big ethical questions of sort of spirituality, religion, life, death, all these big themes alongside other people in this sort of collective community and in this globalized context that also places an emphasis on social justice. So I guess sort of as like a couple high level takeaways, this work has really convinced me of sort of the power that contemplative and reflective practices when applied in community and in a collective context, the sort of power of these practices to mobilize collective action, sort of a more collective consciousness around environmental issues, among other issues for young people today. And sort of really the benefits within these practices of talking about sort of planetary issues as interconnected with health equity, with sort of racial justice, and with all of these other concerns that are really top of mind these days for young folks. And just mobilizing, I think, the moment that we're in to as an opportunity to sort of reimagine our worlds and our systems for better. And yeah, sort of, again, the power that critical dialogue offers in moving from this sort of individual to this collective lens. Thank you so much.